Ooh, okay, yeah. Well, we start with great power. That's great. Hello, everybody. It's a great pleasure to be here. And once again, thank you very much for FSCon organizers to open the floor for this very important topic. My name is Lucas Lasota. I work for the Free Software Foundation Europe as a legal project manager. And today my talk is about why interoperability is key for software freedom. And I mean, in this audience, I'm pretty sure that, you are very much familiar with the importance of interoperability. And among the audience, I'm very happy to have Carlo Piana here, who has been discussing this for more than 20 years. And, but apparently, for other type of audience, we still have to explain why interoperability is very important. And since this call is recorded, I hope that this message come across to different audiences, because today, we will talk about interoperability in general and why this is important for free software, and what are our measures the FSFE is taking in order to protect interoperability from monopolist control, and we'll talk about this. And then we kicked off a project recently together with my colleague, Dario Presutti, who is also, I'm very happy here, is in the audience, that we are monitoring how interoperability is being handled by big tech. And therefore, if you are a developer, we wanted to hear from you. Your opinions matter very much for us. So let's kick off with an example. So recently, not recently, but last year, I was in Japan, and I was really amazed how old things work with new technology in Japan seamlessly. So this is a picture that I took in the metro there, and they had very old machines working with digital machines connected via the internet and very modern protocols. And at that moment, I could see the power of interoperability. This became very clear to me. Interoperability connects the past and the future. Right now, the things that we are doing right now, if we are talking about sustainability and how these things should work in the future, we need interoperability. Interoperability saves resource. Of course, that we need to put some effort in made to things to connect, and the talk before was about license compatibility, which is also some kind, so we needed to put some resources on this, but as soon as it is established, interoperability helps us to keep our machines and techs, working. And last but not least, I think there is a social component when we talk about interoperability. It's not only about making two different machines or two different products to work, but there is a social component on it. As soon as the societies become more complex, interoperability becomes essential. Otherwise, we would be trapped, in the hands of the few. And interoperability allows us to move on this complexity. And, however, although it looks very nice, interoperability in general is, is characterized by a paradox. And this paradox is that although companies and, well, even individuals or small organizations, but as soon everyone benefits from interoperability, but as soon as their products or services become too important to be of regulation in regards to interoperability, they step back and they react. So when the companies are small and wanted to interoperate with the platform, the service, or the product of a bigger one, well, they have the incentives to go for interoperability. But as soon as your product becomes very important and you needed to grant interoperability to others, then you step back and you start to react. And it's very bad in the sense that we have been seeing differently how companies have badly reacted against interoperability. And now I would like to start with some case studies that we have been encountered out there in the wild in the last 2 years, where the FSFE has been working very, deeply into interoperability in operating systems, app stores, and in the mobile ecosystem principally. And I would like to contextualize here, because I think Apple is, a case that you can find in books, how to backslash interoperability, and that's why I think this case is quite important. As soon as, let me just, who has an iPhone here in the audience? Okay, thank you. So perhaps my message here will resonate with you somehow, is that, who of you who have the Apple device use an alternative app store, that you are not using Apple App Store? Okay, so we have some diehards there, on two, okay, but very much. Okay, good. Who of you can install an app directly from the web? You just go to a website and then download it directly into your iPhone. Okay, now I get it. Nobody. Okay, yes. And the last but not least, I think this question can be a little bit criminal, so you feel free not to answer. Who already installed an alternative operating system on your jailbroken iOS? Okay, nobody. All right, I'll take that, that indeed you didn't. The three cases here, we are talking about interoperability on different levels, right? And I do believe that iPhones are very powerful general purpose computers. And although I was personally in a regulatory conference where Apple's representative claimed that iPhones are not general-purpose computers, I do believe from the perspective of software freedom, iPhones are very powerful computers that allow you to install and uninstall any software that you want. In principle, you can exercise the 4 freedoms of software, 4 freedoms of free software. And let's not forget about these 4 freedoms, which are very much important. And we can exercise these freedoms with our iPhones. We can exercise our freedoms with our app phones. But this is a reality. This is what's happening when you have an iPhone at your hand. You cannot exercise your freedoms. And therefore, when we are looking into from the perspective of the EU regulations and laws, actually the installation, uninstallation of software, the enabling of alternative app stores, accessing some functions into operating systems, we are talking about interoperability. We are talking about software interoperability, hardware interoperability, to make 2 systems to work together, right? And unfortunately, this is not a reality when we are talking about Apple devices. And this is something that has become against the EU legislation. Well, why Apple have this power to do this? Because, well, they are, together with Google, the 2 largest providers of operating systems in the world, right? Both of them, Google and Apple, they dominate more than 99% of the world market for mobile operating systems. Of course, I know there are free software alternatives there, almost completely, the Googleized or, that are indeed completely free software. But we are, unfortunately, a very small minority there. The vast majority of people, they are still using Android and Google, right? The situation becomes so bad that even the European Union started to think about how to change this situation here. This situation is affecting not only the free software community, but is affecting the EU as a whole. So, therefore, when we see what we just, this very sad situation, we are seeing that actually we, at the free software community, we are not able to exercise our freedoms, although we are part very much of this situation, because free software is contained at least in 96% of all code base that is being commercialized in the world, and differently from Silicon Valley, where software development is pretty much characterized by big tech. Software development in the EU is done majoritarily, more than 94%, by SMEs with less than 9 employees. So remember in the beginning of my talk that when you are small, interoperability is very important for you. So interoperability is very important for software industry in the EU. And therefore, the European Union started some years ago to think how to deal with this. And they came up with a law, it's called the Digital Markets Act, where where they want to establish interoperability by design or by default, and a very powerful disposition in this law, an article in this law, is Article 6.7. And let's read very shortly together on this. The gatekeeper is the big tech company, shall allow providers of services and providers of hardware free of charge, effective interoperability to the same and software features accessed or controlled via the operating system by the gatekeeper. So basically, if the gatekeeper, the company, Apple, Google, Microsoft, has the control over some software and hardware features controlled via the operating system, they should grant access to third party as well. However, since we are talking about Apple as a case study here, Apple is very angry with this law and especially with this article. And they went to the highest European court to claim that this part of the law is illegal. It's unconstitutional. And they are saying that interoperability is against human rights. And they are saying that interoperability is against Apple's human rights. For an example, the right to property, right to conduct the business, you know, and they are really putting forward such arguments, you know. And we are very happy that the FSFE was accepted by the court also to intervene in this case. And 2 weeks ago we had the hearing, you know. And basically, what we are claiming there that is the same what I started my talk with. As soon as society grows in complexity, you know, we needed to have interoperability, especially for the smaller ones, for the smaller players, you know, for SMEs, for not-for-profit, for startups, you know, and therefore, Apple is being regulated from the public interest. We had already several, in parallel to this court case, we already had a very good victory on the regulatory level that the European Commission started to regulate Apple administratively in relation to interoperability. So the Commission prepared a huge document for software interoperability and hardware interoperability for Apple to implement it. And we are very happy that the Free Software Foundation in Europe, we took part on this and we helped the European Commission with technical, legal, with policy advice in order to convince the Commission how DMA should be enforced in a free software developer way. Here's the QR code, one article, a study, a comprehensive study that we published, and it was reviewed by the Commission, where we put a coalition of free software projects, alternative app stores, alternative payment systems, browsers, and other free softwares, all of them requesting interoperability from Apple and having interoperability from Apple denied. Access to the NFC chip, access to some features in the operating systems, not having their app store being allowed in iOS, for an example. And we compiled everything, and then we put all of that, and then we submitted it to the European Commission. And then in March this year, the Commission had a decision, very good one, imposing interoperability on Apple, and we are really happy. So now, what we're doing, since now we have this very cool decision, and then Commission established a program for Apple to implement interoperability, now we need to monitor this. And this talk is a call for all the developers who work with Apple, not necessarily, you can work also, you could be an Android developer as well, but if you have request interoperability or in your app, in your app store, whatever, this is a broad call, and you have your requested denied. For an example, if you wanted to access camera in iPhone, or you wanted to access the microphone, or the NFC chip, or there is some access on the operating system that you need. For an example, these guys here, the emulator, they were requesting access to GAT compilation, and they were not allowed. If you have this, contact us. It will be a great pleasure to talk. Thank you very much for your attention, and I'm open for perhaps we have time for one question. Thanks a lot.
Thanks to Lucas Lasota for this very important speech, I think. If you have any questions, just 30 seconds. There we have one.
If you make in 10 seconds another one, perhaps you can take
Yes,
through.
let's do it really, really quick, and then, of course, we will have time.
Yeah, okay.
It's arriving, the Microsoft. Sorry.
Isn't Nintendo and other console companies doing the same thing?
Yeah, they're doing, but unfortunately, the law does not apply to them because they're not big enough, you know. So, but yeah, it would be cool if the DMA could apply to Nintendo as well. Yeah.
Thank you.
Another question.
There was another one on that side.
Hi. We are seeing some kind of lock of the Android ecosystem with our recent EU legislation about the bandwidth that should be locked on our phones. So this pushed Android's vendors to actually lock the bootloader, and this allow us to sideload another, for example, CyanogenMod or Lineage OS, yes, for example. And is the FSC able to do something to,
yeah, we are doing.
to counter it?
So very shortly, at this moment, I don't think that the locking of bootloader, there are some news about Samsung locking the bootloader because of some EU regulations. At this moment, perhaps we can talk in the future, but I'm not buying that they did because of EU legislation. They already had this on the pipeline, and they are searching for a scapegoat in order to lock the bootloader, you know. However, we are seeing indeed some more lockings of the Android operating system. We are monitoring this. We are making some comparisons with Apple, and we want to make sure that Android do not become the new iOS. So yeah, we are monitoring it, and thank you for that.